Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a map review in terms of the Protoss perspective for the map Scrap Station. This is the 1.2.5 version of Scrap Station, so there were some recent changes. The addition and the changing of the vents at your low ground, at the Xel'Naga Watchtower, and at your opponent's low ground as well. So let's go ahead and move straight into the map review. Now, as always, just a couple of overviews for all races in general. There are only two spawning locations on this map, at the 12 o'clock location and at the 3 o'clock location. With these two locations, you automatically know where your opponent is going to be. Now, because of the long rushing distances between these two maps, as a Protoss player, you may try to go for a front door low ground expansion and trying to build your buildings on the low ground here. I've seen a lot of pylons with a forge and then one photon cannon here and then one photon cannon here, which does a great job at protecting your natural expansion as well as your main base as well, just because Zerglings will have a difficult time trying to run by as long as you make them funnel through and walk in a single file line, even if they have the metabolic boosted upgrades. So that is a very viable option. On the north side, it's the same exact thing, a pylon here. You can get your gateway, forge, cybernetics core, and then build units along, and then build cannons along that backside. It doesn't work as well nearly against a Zerg player who's going for roaches. So you want to make sure that your opponent, if your opponent is Zerg, tries to do a fast expansion. If he does fast expand, you can then expand as well. Zerg players normally go for a 15 or 14 fast expansion. If your opponent does go early roaches though, and you do end up going for a much earlier expansion than they do, you will have to just try to hold out, use those cannons, use some zealots, and use that ability to deal a lot of damage and protect. As long as you're able to hold out and make sure that they don't get to your probes, then you can get a very, very strong economic lead later in the game. Now, against Terran players, be very careful. If your opponent is a Terran player and you see them only running off of one base and your early scouting probe sees double gas, that most likely means that he's going to be trying to go for some sort of drop tactic or banshees. With that, you need to go most likely a 1 gate, 2 gate into a robotics facility and keep a lookout with that observer. Make sure that you do not allow your opponent to either get cloaked banshees into your base without detection, or get a lot of blue flame hellions into your base without a decent number of stalkers. A little bit of foresight in this category and you'll be able to handle his early aggression rush, and while being able to not falling too far behind, and also developing a very strong economy. Now, in a Protoss versus Protoss mirror match, the Protoss versus Protoss generally boils down to a lot of 4-gate pushes, I'm afraid to say. So at least that's what's currently being played in the high level strategies. So what you're going to have to work on is work on your 4-gate strategies. If you do not know what the 4-gate strategy is, you train up exactly into, I believe it's 20 probes, and then you stop your probe production, and then you just flood out with a large number of warp gate units off of 4 gateways. The reason why 4-gate works so well, especially on this map, is the wider choke points. Normally, a sentry is able to drop down one force field in order to be able to block a ramp. But because of the wider ramp here on Scrap Station, it actually takes 2 force fields, meaning that you need double the amount of sentries in order to be able to hold off an army for the same amount of time. What you may want to try to do is, if you are doing a 4-gate, is place a pylon a little bit out of range, perhaps here or even here. Here is probably the best, so that if you do end up getting a zealot up onto that high ground, you still have the ability to warp in units here, and then you make your opponent have to fight a war on 2 fronts by making them have to cover this ramp here and then warping in zealots here and having stalkers on the low ground. What that will force your opponent to do is try to figure out if they want to keep the sentries here to continue to force field the ramp, or if they're going to try to deal with the zealots, which will eventually get inside your opponent's base and start destroying your opponent's mineral line. Any questions, you can go ahead and leave them on the video, or leave them here in the StarCraft guide, and I will let you know, or leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 map review on Scrap Station for Protoss.